In Kazakhstan, the craft developed over the centuries, leaving a legacy of unique products of artisans, amazing wealth of artistic imagination, and the perfection of form. A respect for one's heritage, traditional cultural values, these are the main tasks of the current generation. The history of folk crafts is a record of creative research and the discoveries of folk artists. The art of the Kazakh people, their national traits and traditions, were formed and perfected for centuries. Folk art stores in itself a historical memory and national heritage. Masters of folk art have bit by bit collected and continue to collect the experience of previous generations, multiplying them and transferring their skills from one generation to the next. In the life of Kazakh people, music has occupied an important place since ancient times. Whether a lullaby song or melodies of steppe singers, folk tunes, and finally the instruments of professional musicians. Music is the art of sound that creates a unique harmony that is not limited to anything but a composer's imagination. It was in music that the soul of the Kazakh people found the most complete reflection. Thanks to musical instruments made of wood and reed, from clay and metal, and from the skins and bones of animals, the sounds of the Kazakh steppe came to life. Our distant ancestors composed original music. They composed songs, leaving their creations forever for the next generation to enjoy. Tracing the history of the emergence of musical instruments, we can say that it was a long and complex process, inseparable from the culture, art, and way of life of the people. The instrument made by a real master can feel the state of the musician, his temperament and emotional experience. Mirbek Dilmanov is a master just like that. He does his favorite thing. He makes and tunes national musical instruments. The nature of folk music is such that musical works create the basis of legends or real events which are designed to make a person think, feel, and empathize. Music can change a person, and in this the true power and purpose of art, says Mirbek, whose life was inextricably linked with music. After school he entered university and received a specialty, the Master of Musical Instruments. But he also received a professional musical education, graduating from the Tchaikovsky School. Now he is one of the leaders of the workshop for the manufacture and reconstruction of musical instruments. Under his leadership, there are more than 20 professional masters. And if you look into the workshop, you can see the working atmosphere. Each master is busy doing his work. Someone cuts instruments out of a solid log, and another pulls strings. while other masters apply ornaments to prepare parts of blanks. Everyone is focused on doing their work. Jibek, as the main master, has to manage and track all the stages of manufacturing. Under his leadership, employees perform a variety of types of work. They learn and constantly improve their professional skills. Often, the quality of the tools of the factory production does not meet the needs of even non-professional musicians, when tools are made of low-quality wood. As a result, this leads to a change in shape, fragility, and the loss of sound. While a quality tool requires a specially selected sort of wood, specially dried and prepared. Therefore, in the workshop, Jibek very carefully monitors the quality of each stage of manufacturing. Often the instruments are made by the master for a particular artist, based on the individual characteristics of his body. The presence of two specialities strongly helps Jibek in his work. Being a musician, he has a subtle musical ear, which allows him to tune instruments. And also he is a master with a great practical experience that allows him to easily distinguish a quality product. The master can at each stage evaluate the sound level of a future dobra or violin. The rumor of a professional musician is more perfect. For example, he can distinguish individual shades of sound, instantly and in detail represent a musical whole. But at the same time, it is wrong to think that musicians hear music more subtly and more deeply than other people. They just hear it differently. They can visualize music in their mind, internally hear it and experience it. They have a more subtle, selective, and multi-valued relationship of hearing music with their imagination and thinking. Jibek told us that we cannot say with absolute certainty that the hearing of musicians of the past was more delicate or sharper than ours. But of course, that auditory perception of our ancestors was otherwise adjusted. The nuances of altitude and the shades and quality of intervals seemed to be extremely important. An ancient instrument is like a monument, in which even the changes that take place in the spiritual life of the people are stagnating. We just touched on the history of the production of the musical instruments, and were surprised by the complex production process. In the workshop, the old ways of production are successfully combined with modern technologies. There is a clear relationship between the parameters of the instruments and the choice of the material, the size of the parts, the technology of its manufacturing as well. This determines the timbre, the rhythmic tones and richness of the instrument's sound, its unique charm and originality. In the workshop, various musical instruments are made, such as a dobra, kobus, shirtir, tambourine, and much more. Each instrument requires a lot of attention, skillful hands, and rich experience in its manufacturing. All instruments created in the workshop are characterized by good sound quality, strong sound, and a beautiful timbre. often than other instruments, the masters of Jibek make a dumbra. Today it is difficult to imagine a performer of the people's kuis without a dumbra, which is considered an indispensable attribute, not only of professional dumbra players, but also of a favorite home instrument. The master told us that absolutely everything affects the quality and purity of the sound. The tree species, its age and textures, size and proportions are all part and much more. The Tian Shan spruce has the highest acoustic property. Also, wood maple, spruce, and Kazakh are often used. The denser texture of the wood, the fuller and more saturated the sound. In the workshop, in addition to the dumbra assembled from individual parts, it is also possible to make the instrument from a single piece of wood. And this is a fairly complex and time-consuming process. Not every workshop can accomplish this task. The design of the dumbra includes the body. It performs the function of an amplifier of sound waves, as in other similar instruments. Then there is the deka, which is not only enhancing the sound waves, but it also gives them a characteristic sound color, thereby forming the timbre of the instrument. Depending on the shape or roughness of the deck, the sounds that seem to be present in the same instruments can be quite different. After the manufacturing of the tool, the master applies various methods of design. Ornaments are applied and a ready-made template, fastened to the body, and cut out with a special knife. After decorating the dumbra, the master proceeds to paint the instrument. The brush is applied with the right paint and shade. A special lacquer is coated over the paint for a more aesthetic and beautiful look. But the varnish coating also protects the dumbra from the effects of moisture. Traditionally in a dumbra, vein strings were used, which were made from the guts of animals. Such strings give a low sound characteristic of folk music. However, stranded strings are not durable. Currently, such strings are no longer used. Traditionally, there are only two strings on the Kazakh dumbra, the pitch of which determines its mood. Jibek pays great attention to the tuning of the instrument. The master carefully extracts the first sounds, pressing the strings to a specific place in the instrument's fretboard. Tuning the dumbra, Jibek plays a Kazakh tune and constantly listens to the sound of the instrument. While playing the dumbra, he checks the strings for strength. It gives a double load, because if the string breaks, it's better that it happens during the adjustment and not later, for example at a concert. It seems that the tuner needs two things, an absolutely perfect pitch and a tuning key. But this is a common misconception. Jibek told us that he can fully adjust the instrument by ear without using any devices. A good tuner, having done his job, gives a guarantee. For a master, musical instruments are like people. Everyone has its own character, and everyone needs his own approach. The main secret is that you need to feel the instrument and also love folk music. One of the oldest stringed instruments, called the kobus, is also in great demand. The sound possibilities of the kobus are very rich. Once it was 2 or 3 stringed. Today, thanks to its improvement, several varieties of 4-stringed kobus have emerged. Jibek made a kobus 3 times bigger than the original one. The open case as well as the strings give the instrument a rich and unique sound. The strings for a kobus are woven by a bundle of horsehair, and they are elastic and durable. The thickness of the strings depends on the thickness of the sound. The thicker they are, the lower their height, and vice versa. The different strings and strength of sound are possessed by strings made of different materials. The hair strings that have muffled, soft sounds, and metal strings with a strong resonance and voluminous sound. Among the musical instruments, you can see a tambourine. This is the Kazakh national percussion instrument. It is made of beech. The membrane is made from natural bovine leather. It has a loud sound, and in ancient times the tambourine was used for the warning of wars, for hunting, and for warning about a soon move. This is due to the fact that it could be heard over a long distance. They play on such a tambourine with a wooden beater with a soft tip. In ancient times, magical rites of shamans always were accompanied by tambourines and drums. It is interesting that the tambourines and drums also need tuning. The thickness of the skin affects the sound quality. During the tuning process, the master strokes the stretched skin and checks the pitch of the sound to achieve the desired tone. The workshop of Jibek is famous not only for its production of folk instruments, but also for its museum, where a variety of ancient instruments were assembled after the reconstruction. Thanks to the exhibited collection, you can get acquainted with several varieties of dombra, kobus, shirtir, drums, tambourines, and even balalaikas. The masters restore old forgotten instruments, and many old folk instruments received a new life after the reconstruction and took a worthy place among the other collected and restored exhibits. The whole work of the master is aimed at ensuring that the folk instruments are in more popular demand. Jibek always tries to follow the advice and wishes that the performers and teachers of music schools impose on the instrument. Therefore, to finalize the instrument, Jibek invites professional musicians who have rich practical experience. After all, musicians have an outstanding pitch, which is revealed only after a result of constant playing on a musical instrument. This allows them to feel the unusually subtle timbre, volume, and pitch of the instrument. Musicians help Jibek bring the level of tuning to perfection.